During an event at Mar-a-Lago on Saturday, former President Donald Trump took the mic to share his thoughts on the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and more specifically, the question of leaving U.S. military equipment behind. He also had this to say about Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley. It's subtle, as always with Trump. You have to read between the lines, but let's take a listen.
You got a $50 million airplane. You got a $29 million gorgeous helicopter. We had every type of helicopter. Many of them brand new, literally out of the box. 28, 29 million. We have $60, $70 million planes. You mean you think it's cheaper to leave it there so they can have it than it is to fill it up with a half a tank of gas and fly it into Pakistan or fly it back to our country? You think, yes, sir, we think it's cheaper, sir. That's when I realized he was a idiot.
I'm sorry.
Team Rising is here with their reactions. Nomiki Konst is a director of Matriarch and host of the Nomiki Konst Show. Philip Wegman is White House reporter for Real Clear Politics. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
I mean, Nomiki, I can understand leaving behind like the Jeeps and the Humvees, but doesn't the guy have a point? Like, if the thing can fly, why can't you fly it out of there?
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those frustrating moments. You're like, oh, I hate agreeing with this man, but I also want to read between the lines here a little bit. He's right. You shouldn't be leaving anything. I mean, we saw how that worked out in Libya, where they decided to tomahawk those weapons facilities, and then everybody started fighting with their family member with, advanced weaponry. You can't do that. That's how you're going to encourage more civil war and strife when they have weapons. So if we don't want to go back to Afghanistan, you might want to actually pull out entirely from Afghanistan. So he does have a point. But what I'm more concerned about here is I think that this is the line of attack because there is a weakness in the center left, the Biden administration's foreign policy, as we all know. It's an American empire weakness. It is who we are as a country. And it's a way that he can sneak in any sort of Republican. I mean, they're taking messaging from Donald Trump. They're going to go out on the road, mimic these talking points, maybe, cut the F-bomb out. And that's going to be the messaging that's going to possibly lose the Democrats, the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Philip, Trump has an interesting line to walk here, although, he can do whatever he wants, obviously. But because he ran on getting out of Afghanistan last time, and he wants to be very critical, as many are, as the voters hold Biden kind of responsible for what the voters consider this to be largely botched. But he did support the policy previously, so he has to turn it about how various people not named Trump screwed it up. If you had someone named Trump doing it, it would have been great. It would have been the greatest withdrawal. Everyone has been saying what a great withdrawal it would have been if Trump had done it.
And that would be really difficult for any other politician except for Donald Trump, because remember, as an armchair general, he's undefeated. And I think that what we're going to see is again and again, he's going to ram through this counterfactual, which is, oh, well, if I had been there telling the generals what to do and when to do it, this would have been a completely different result. Everyone supported withdrawing from Afghanistan. They just did support withdrawing from Afghanistan the way that Biden did it. Trust me, instead. You could very easily see Donald Trump make that argument on a debate stage. Like Nomiki said, I think that the problem there is that Trump was urging the DOD to get out of Afghanistan up until the last moment. And it wasn't like there were intricate plans for how to leave and how to leave in an orderly manner. But this didn't happen on his watch. And, he knows that Biden's poll numbers began to plummet in August after the chaotic withdrawal. So he's going to ride this as long as he can. And look, we've seen that when people try to call Donald Trump out in the past, it doesn't often work. And so this might just be another example of that.
And Nomiki, even if we agree with Donald Trump on a superficial level here, isn't he also kind of missing the point of the military-industrial complex here? Like the way that it works is, the United States gives money to foreign governments, and then the foreign governments use that money to, send it back to Roslyn, Virginia, to buy the planes and buy the weapons that we then send over there. So that whole piece happened. It just was the kind of occupied Afghan government that did it. So once that transaction has happened and we have successfully kind of driven up real estate prices in Northern Virginia, what interest does the military-industrial complex have of putting the thing back in the box and bringing it home anyway? I mean, you're not going to get as much reselling it, and the purpose isn't the machine itself. The purpose is just the kind of the churn, right?
Right. Well, clearly he didn't get his talking points from Eric Prince. He has to go back. I mean, you're right. I'm surprised that the greatest businessman of all time couldn't come up with some other, how do we sell it back to them again because there's a new government. You're right. I mean, he seems to get a part of the military-industrial complex, but not the whole thing. But that's sort of the allure of Trump. Most people don't understand the intricacies of how the American government functions abroad, how this entire ecosystem works. And that's not what's important, really. He's not there to explain every single detail. He's there to drive a wedge, find a line of attack, and make sure that that's the line of attack, not just for his potential run again or whoever follows him, but the entire Republican Party, so that, he can go around and say, I told you so.
In other news from Trump world, longtime Trump ally and former U.S. Senator David Perdue is expected to announce plans to challenge Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia in 2022. According to Politico, Perdue was recruited to run by Donald Trump after Governor Kemp refused to help his bid to block the 2020 election results. Last week, Democrat Stacey Abrams announced that she would also be running for Georgia governor. So, Philip, is this another example of Trump's, war on his actual party, which he demands, really serve his, I think, politically and electorally unsustainable argument that he did win, and because he was not recognized as the winner, why even vote? Or we have to relitigate that whole mess when certainly the party wants to move on, but he won't let them.
Yeah, it's interesting that Donald Trump and David Perdue are making this move now at a moment when Chris Christie and others are saying, if we want to be successful in 2022 or 2024, we need to move past the last election. We need to move past the arguments about whether it was or wasn't rigged. That's in the past. Leave it there. I find this really interesting because I remember back last Thanksgiving, I was in the pool at the White House, and I remember asking Trump about Georgia specifically. And my question to him was, sir, how can you talk about how the general election was rigged, but then encourage voters in Georgia to get out and support Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue? And rather than sort of giving an artful answer about how, this is a state election, this is different, he was just like, yeah, no, I told David and Kelly about that. They got to watch out. That election might be rigged too. And it shows that he didn't connect in his mind how if you told people that the election in November was rigged, that they would stay home for the special Senate election. And that is absolutely one of the things that hurt turnout. Donald Trump was down in Georgia, but he wasn't talking about Perdue and Loeffler. And the one Republican who seems open to saying that Trump lost in the Senate is Chris Christie, and he's been hammering that point for some time. So I think that's interesting. But I'm most surprised that David Perdue, knowing full well that Donald Trump was kind of a sunshine patriot, wasn't a great ally, probably cost him the seat. I'm surprised that he's casting his lot with Trump and against Brian Kemp down in Georgia.
And Philip, do you have any reporting on, is that why Perdue decided not to run for Senate? Because there was some, he was leaning heavily towards that, then announced he wasn't. Having Herschel Walker running against Raphael Warnock is a real gift to Democrats compared to Perdue, who comes from this dynasty, and despite his loss, is still the family still has some popularity, particularly among suburban voters there. So was it Trump's insistence that he do this instead?
So David Perdue is out of central casting. When you think about a conventional Senate candidate, is definitely more conventional. I don't know if that's what spurred this decision, but I think that once Trump made his endorsement clear, Perdue clearly had to find a different lane.
Well, thank you guys for joining us both, Philip, Nomiki. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will have more Rising right after this.